Well, good day. This is Grandpa Jim from Grandpa Jim's Gardening Tips. Now, we've been growing some tomatoes. We started from seed, and now it's time to kind of upsize the container that they're in. And the reason we do that, there's a couple reasons. One is, if you can see here, there's not a whole lot of soil or potting mix here that for these roots to grow. And the important thing with tomatoes is you don't want to interrupt any of their growing. You want them to keep growing and growing. And so what I do is I take the tomatoes and I upsize them into these red solo cups. Now you can use larger pots, you can use foam cups. I find these to be about the right size, and they really makes a big difference then as far as how many roots they get to grow so you don't interrupt the growth. Now, when I use these cups, I put holes in the bottom of it, and the reason we do that is because we want it to drain. If you do not put holes in it, water accumulates and it rots the leaves, and next thing you know, you have either a yellowing, sickly, or even dying tomato plant. So, anyway, as far as just planting these, I put a little soil in the bottom of the cup, and then we take the tomatoes out. Now, there's different ways. I've seen people do this before, but what they do, they'll squeeze these, and then they grab it by the stem and yank it out. Well, that works sometimes. The problem is sometimes the roots stick down there, and next thing you know, you rip off a bunch of the roots that are there. We don't want to do that. So what I do is I use this tool. You can buy them on Amazon. The original name of them was a nitpicker, but if you look for miniature gardening tools, you can find them on. But you can also use a tongue depressor, popsicle stick. You can even use a label, and you just kind of push it down here along the sides. And here we go. We're going to push this down here and just kind of loosen it up ever so slightly. And then when you squeeze slightly, the tomato will come up, hopefully, into one nice root ball. See that root ball there? They're growing. They're ready to get into a bigger container. Now, when you're planting your tomatoes, here's something to always remember. You can bury the stem, and that's a secret to growing big, healthy tomato plants. They will form roots. The deeper you plant it, up to the regular leaves, the deeper you plant it, then the more roots you get. More roots. Tomatoes are heavy feeders. They need a lot of nutrients, and that helps that along. So what I do is I take my cup and I set it down about this high. Now I want you to look at something here. You see these leaves here, and these are what you normally would see with a tomato. But these leaves here are actually the seed leaves. When the tomato first comes up, this is where they get their nutrients, is from the seed. And this is part of the seed leaves. They will turn yellow, they will fall off. There's nothing wrong with your tomatoes at all. You can even bury these if you want. But what I do then is I just start to fill the cup. You see here, I'm burying the stem. Burying the stem. I use Pro Mix. It's a good organic brand potting mix. It's got some nutrients and some other biological things that are in there that just help it really help the roots a great deal. And we just keep filling it up and up until we've buried that stem. Now what's going to happen is that stem's going to start have roots come out of it. And the next thing you know, it's really going to help the top of the plant. It'll take off like you wouldn't believe. They only grow so fast. And if a tomato is kind of touchy when it comes to things like, you just don't want them to be interrupted. I'll put it that way. So you really need to keep making them in a bigger pot. Now, some folks even go to a third pot. I only go this far. The tomatoes will grow about this high, I'd say 6 inches high maybe, and then they'll be ready to plant. So anyway, that's how we do the tomatoes. I'm going to be planting a couple other kinds here later today. But right here you can see, here's one that's an heirloom, and it's called Green Giant. It grows green tomatoes. When they're ripe, they'll be green. And you notice the leaf on this is different. Some of the old-fashioned tomatoes had what we call a potato leaf. So those are kind of fun to grow. So anyway, that's how we do this. We just repeat it over and over. This year I'm planting 70 different varieties of tomatoes. And so you can see I've got my work cut out for me. So one other word I'd like to just suggest to you regarding your tomatoes. I watched a lot of different groups or read a lot of different groups on Facebook. And the questions are just always the same when it comes to tomatoes. When can I set them out to harden them? Or when can I set them out and to plant them and actually plant them? Here's what I do, just a little tip. If you're not sure how to do it, go to Google and Google USA growing map. And what you'll get, it'll be a colored map. It'll pop up on many, many sites with different colors for different parts of the country. And then there's usually to the side, if you can't find that, all you have to do is, first of all, with that map, find your zone. Say you're in Virginia and it's zone 7. And then you go and look at a chart. There'll be a chart there, or you can look for a chart and it'll say zone 7, last frost date is May 1st or whenever that is. Here in Ohio, it's May 15th. So what I do is about a week or so before, if the weather's pretty nice and decent, I start setting my tomatoes out. And I'll set them out and put them out in shade for the first day or two. And then we start for another day or two moving them into partial sun, and then a couple days later we put them out in full sun. Keep in mind that if you just set them out in the sun, they're going to wind burn or sunburn. If it's really windy, they'll wind burn. You really need to do the process slowly as far as hardening them off. Now here in Ohio, sometimes we get warm days, and then at nighttime it's really chilly. I'll bring my tomatoes back in. I put these in flats and I just bring them back in if it's going to be cold at night and chilly. If it's in the around 50 or so, no problem, you can leave them out. Tomatoes are really touchy about temperature, and quite frankly, even if it's not a frost that'll kill them, they'll just sit there. If people plant them too early and they just sit there because the ground's cold. So like what I do here in Ohio, it's May 15th. I'll have them hardened up, ready to go, but at least in our state, the weather is up and down and all around. And remember, that's last average frost date on that chart that you're going to look on with the map. So I will usually wait an additional several days or a week just to be sure, because while we normally don't have frost after May 15th, we have had frost after May 15th. I usually on May 15th, I will watch the weather report, see what the forecast is. If it says, oh, it's going to be gloriously warm for the next week, you can go ahead and put them out. But be very careful and the safest way is to wait 1 week afterwards. You're not going to lose any time, because if it's cold outside, those tomatoes are just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing. So anyway, that's how I transplant my tomatoes. These will go back under my grow lights, and we'll let them continue to grow. So I would like you, if you would, to tell your friends about Grandpa Jim's gardening tips. We would love to have more and more folks. And again, I encourage all the people that are watching this video, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them on this group in our group, or if you have something you'd like to share, maybe you've got a different way you do things, and we'd love to hear that. So again, this is Grandpa Jim, and wishing you happy gardening.